Now, despite the physical distancing, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, not only did South Korea manage to push ahead with this election, but a 28-year high voter turnout of a whopping 66.2%. Professor On, what can we attribute this record high voter turnout to?
I think there's two major things. First is about the COVID-19 factor, and it was supposed to be played negatively on the approval rate for President Moon and his party, but however it turned out to be the other way around because that his administration handled it very well. I mean, compared to other nations, right? So he got approval from the publics. I think that's good news. Also, there's about the increasing popularity about the early voting, because about 26.7% of the turnout, is about 40% of the actual voting is the early vote, right?
Right.
So that would be a factor. But the problem with that early vote is that it's not counted as it's not counted into the exit poll. So we have to see about could be some other factors, in the final moment.
Right, that could be a deciding factor in the results. Now, Mokyeon, fears of the coronavirus are resetting political calendars all across the globe, but that's of course not the case for the Korean elections. However, it did have an impact on the overseas voters.
Yes, Kanyang, from late March, the National Election Commission has canceled overseas voting in more than 65 diplomatic missions in 40 countries for the first time since the system was first introduced in 2012. This meant only half of the nearly 172,000 eligible voters were able to cast their ballots. Koreans in the U.S., the UK, France, Italy, and many other European countries were unable to vote. Following continuing concerns over the turnout and the citizens' right to vote, the Commission and health authorities announced that COVID-19 patients in South Korea who pre-registered last month can send their ballots from where they are quarantined through mail. And just a few days ago, the Ministry of Health and Welfare laid out new measures to allow more people to vote by temporarily lifting quarantine hours for asymptomatic people who are in self-quarantine for possible COVID-19 infections. They've been allowed to leave their homes from 5:20 p.m. and finish their votes and return home by 7.
Right, so and the voting closed at 7 p.m., which is an hour late. Now, Mokyeon, what are some other factors that were different about this year's elections?
Well, as many of you already know, this election comes at a sensitive time when the nation is in the midst of fighting the coronavirus outbreak. So alongside local voters, other countries are also paying a lot of attention. Though many countries such as Britain, France, and Chile decided to postpone their respective elections to prevent the possibility of the spread of COVID-19, South Korea has become the first country to hold such a large-scale election during the pandemic. And as part of efforts to prevent the spread of the virus, the National Election Commission has implemented various measures, such as making voters wear masks and gloves and making them stay at least a meter away from each other. And due to this, much attention is focused on today's election, not only from local observers, but also from across the globe. Some foreign media even describe South Korea as Asia's beacon of democracy.